Sensitive and regarded worldwide as a reference point for the populist movement, Brexit is now being presented before Britain's Supreme Court. A historic hearing that will decide whether Parliament has to approve the government's Brexit negotiations, a move that could delay the country's exit from the EU. The head of Britain's Supreme Court says the Brexit case is about law, not wider politics.
The justices of the court are, of course, aware of the public interest in this case, and we are aware of the strong feelings associated with the many other wider political questions surrounding the United Kingdom's departure from the European Union. However, as will be apparent from the arguments before us, those wider political questions are not the subject of this appeal. This appeal is concerned with legal issues, and as judges, our duty is to consider those issues impartially and to decide the case according to the law. That is what we will do.
And we're now joined live via Skype by Jonathan Sacerdoti, our correspondent based in London. Jonathan, the High Court ruled last month that the government did not have the executive power alone to invoke Article 50. The government today is appealing this ruling.
Indeed, and you heard Lord Neuberger there, who's the president of the Supreme Court, explaining that this is not a political court case, that the matters that these 11 judges are going to be deciding on are purely to do with legal issues, to do with the UK Constitution. That is to say, that where some people have accused them of intervening too closely in a choice that was offered to the British population, which they then made to leave the EU, they are saying that they're doing no such thing and that this is purely an issue of legality, that they need to decide whether Gina Miller and those others who brought the case, saying that they needed there to be a vote in Parliament, whether those people are correct in saying that they are having rights of theirs removed by Britain invoking Article 50 of the Lisbon Treaty to start that process of leaving the EU, or whether the government can use this old-fashioned prerogative, which means that they can make these decisions without consulting the rest of the MPs in Parliament. And that's what this is being discussed right now in the Supreme Court. We'll see over the coming days, and then with a verdict in January, which side these Supreme Court judges will come down on.
So what happens next if the government does indeed lose the Brexit appeal?
So if they lose, as I said, we probably won't hear the judgment in full until January, at which point there's a bit of a ticking clock for Theresa May, because she said that she wished to trigger Article 50, which starts the process of negotiation for Britain to leave the EU, by the end of March in 2017. That gives her very little time to have that debate in the Commons and then have the vote, hoping that the majority of members of Parliament, whether they were pro-leave or not before the referendum, will back her decision to trigger Article 50 in that time frame, and will get the ball rolling on the negotiations. The fear, of course, that they have in the government and that Theresa May has been expressing is that the other parties, other than the Conservative Party and even some Conservative rebels, may wish to impose conditions on their vote to support the triggering of Article 50, and that might make her compromise her hand in negotiations so that she feels she'll be in a weaker position when she comes to negotiate with the rest of the European nations. So all of these things still to play, but what will be happening most likely if the government loses this appeal is that she will be bringing to Parliament a bill that will have them discuss this and vote on it, hoping that in fact the majority of MPs will follow in line with the population's choice and decide to trigger Article 50 as she had planned.
Jonathan Sacerdoti, thanks so much for this. And we're moving now to the U.S., where President-elect Donald Trump has chosen former rival Ben